Okay, so here is your pattern for this month. We're doing a square and a square in a square. So you're going to do that twice. You're going to do. How many of you ever done a square and a square? So a few of you have. Yep. So obviously for the batik, you're getting these two fabrics, this here, and then for the Americana, you're getting those two fabrics in your kit. So these two are fabric A, so it's 8 by 22, and this one is fabric C, which is the 4 by the width of the fabric. So you're going to, the fabric you're going to put in there is the B fabric, one of the 8 by 22 fabrics. So let me show you how to cut this. So what I did is with your A and B fabric, you can actually, you're cutting the same thing, so you can actually put these two together and cut them at the same time. Obviously this one is not as wide because I just pulled this out, but put those two together, you can actually cut these two at the same time. So you're going to cut from A and B, you're going to cut 4 4¼ inch squares. So I'm going to, what I did actually, since this is 8 inches, you can't really do that, can you? I'm trying to remember how I cut this out. It's been a long time. It's been a while. So I'm going to trim this up. And then 4 1/4. You're also going to need to cut from this 2 3 1/2 inch squares. So actually what I did first is cut the 3 1/2 inch squares. So I went from the top, trim that off, and then cut my 3 1/2 inch squares. 1 2 3 3 1/2. Cut that off, and then out of that I'll get my 2 3 1/2 inch squares from that. And then I took the rest of it and then cut out my 4 1/2 inch, 4 1/4 inch, I'm sorry, 4 1/4, 1 2 3 4. And then I cut the 4. So all I'm going to do is really cut the 1, 4 1/4. And then that 4 1/4 inch square you're going to cut in half diagonally. So you're going to have your large triangles, and you're going to cut 8. You're going to end up with 8 large triangles. 4, let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 6, yeah, 8 of each color of the triangles. So you're going to end up with 8 of these and 8 of these after you cut everything else out. And then you're obviously you're going to get your 4 3 1/2 inch, and you're going to have 2 of each one of these, so 2 of each color. And then so now for this one, you're going to cut 8 3 3/4 inch. So you can actually fold this in half. You can trim it if you want to. 1 2 3 3 3/4 inch. So you're gonna end up with 4 8 12 16 of these. 3 3/4 inch, And these also you're going to cut in half diagonally. So take this and cut it in half diagonally. So you're going to end up with your small triangles, your 3.5-inch squares, and your large triangles. And those are the elements you need to make this block right there. Okay? So the challenge for this one is to find the center of your blocks here. So what I do is I take this, iron it in half, and then this and iron. So I find with my iron, I have found the center of each one of my sides. And then you're going to take your smaller triangles first, and you're going to then find the center of your smaller triangle, and all I do is I fold it in half. You can iron it if you want to, but I just finger press it so that I find the center of that little triangle, and then I match marks right there. And now I'm going to take it to the machine, and you're going to do okay, what's going on? Okay. I'm getting to wake up my machine. So you're going to do one side, and now you're going to do the opposite side. So you do the opposite sides of your block. You're going to do that again. You're going to find the center of that. Then I'm going to put it right on the center line. So it's what's most important is to get this point right here so it's in the center of the block, so that when you finish this and turn it, now you have a nice little square. And it's not, that point isn't offset at all. Now when you press this, you're going to press it out from the block. Now, sometimes we say press to the dark, but this is one of the times when you're not going to press to the dark. You're going to press it away from your block. So it's going to kind of look like that. And that's important as we use this block lock ruler, that you press this block that way. So now we're going to do the other two sides. So I'm matching centers again. And if you're not really too concerned with where your points, this outer point on the how these match up, because it's all going to be trimmed away. So you don't even have to worry about where these points are ending up at all. So So now, if you want to come through and trim these off, you can. It's not essential because of the trimming, but sometimes I like to do that just to reduce more bulk in that seam. So now we're going to press this out. And what I like to do instead of seam is to hit it with desk press to really flatten that block out. So that's your first round of triangles. Now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this. And this is where this flying geese ruler comes in really handy, because of these grooves in the ruler. They sit right on top of your seam. So that ruler is not moving at all. One of the frustrating things about trimming with rulers is those rulers will move on you as you're trimming. But because of how these grooves work, this ruler is not going to move at all as I trim. So, and right now you're just using this as a trim. This isn't a mark, because this is not our final step. So it's really nice. You can feel how that ruler just locks right in there, and you know it's not going to move at all. So there's my first step in that block right there. And that is, I think, a 4 3/4 inch square is what that should be when you're finished with it. Doesn't say that on it, but that's what it's measuring out to be. Okay, so now we're going to put I'm going to actually cut another one of these so I can have 4 of those. See, I like this ruler, but sometimes it's just a little confusing. Okay, so we're going to come back to this one. So on this square, you know where your centers are, so you know where those centers happen to be. So what I do is I take my triangle, I fold it in half, kind of finger press it, and then as it's folded in half, I put it right on the center there, so that I know my centers are matched, and then I flip it over. Now, if you want to, you can flip it over and sew it from this side so that you know you get right into that point right there. But I'll show you on the next one. Because this has been trimmed to the precise 1/4 inch. And again, you're going to do opposite sides. And this time, so you see I got that point right very nicely. Did you see that? Right there. You want that point right there on that triangle. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew it from this side and see if I still get that same. So as long as you're doing your 1/4 inch seams precisely, you should also, let's make sure I do this right. See? So yeah, you can just sew it from either side, and you still should be able to get that point right where it needs to be on your And I'm going to do the opposite sides. So once again, you don't need to worry about where those points are ending up if they're going to be precise at all. If one is more over than the other, it doesn't really matter because we will be trimming this block. Okay? Again, I'm going to get a little strip of best press. Make that nice and flat. So now we're going to do the final trim here with our block ruler. And this is where we'll trim it to the final size of 6.5 inches. So it's not that way yet, but as we go around and you trim it, you'll see that now these sides match. There's my 6.5 inch square. So there's your final square. And if you want to give it a final press. So, and when you go to sew this together, and I'll show you on this one because this isn't totally sewn together, you're going to have to match these points. Now these points, when they come together, there's a lot of fabric in those points. So what I've done is I've pressed that seam open to reduce that bulk right there. And that helps reduce the bulk. It's one of the ways that you reduce bulk is to press a seam open. So I pressed that seam open. And when you go to match these, the best way to match your points is to bring these, take a pin, put a pin right in the top of this point, and then bring it through so it's right at the top of this point. Keep that pin vertical, and then put another pin here and another pin here, and then take that pin out. That way you'll know that those 2 points are meeting exactly where they, so that you can get these points these points right next to one another. So that's one of the tricks that I use when I need to match things precisely, is, use that pin. And you don't want to take that pin and then pin, because then you'll take that point off just a hair. So that's why you put a pin here and then you pin it on opposite sides, so that is not going to move as you're sewing through it. Okay? That's my point. That's my tip for that. Okay? Any questions? There you go. All I